Ladies and gentlemen, trust is the foundation of every meaningful relationship. It's the silent agreement that says, I've got you and you've got me. But what happens when that trust is shaken, when the whispers of doubt grow too loud to ignore? Trust is the foundation of all relationships, the invisible thread that holds people together in bonds of love, friendship, family, and partnership. It is not something that can be bought or forced. It is earned, nurtured, and sometimes painfully rebuilt. Without trust, a relationship becomes a hollow shell. The smiles become masks, the words become filtered, and the connection begins to dissolve into doubt and suspicion. Trust allows people to be vulnerable with each other. It gives them the courage to open up, to speak their truths, to share fears and dreams without the constant worry of judgment or betrayal. In a world that can be unpredictable and harsh, trust becomes a safe harbor, an emotional shelter where people can rest knowing that they are accepted and respected. In romantic relationships, trust is even more critical. It enables both partners to feel secure, to love fully without the fear of being used, lied to, or abandoned. It is not just about fidelity, it's about consistency, reliability, emotional safety, and honesty. When you trust someone, you believe they will act in your best interest even when you're not around. You trust that they will speak kindly about you, protect your secrets, and support you through difficult times. It's the belief that your partner won't just be there when things are good, but will stand by you when life tests your resilience. Trust eliminates the need to control or constantly question. It gives both people the freedom to be individuals while still being deeply connected. However, trust is fragile. It can take years to build and seconds to break. A single lie, a hidden conversation, a shift in behavior, these can all create cracks in the foundation. When trust is broken, even unintentionally, it plants seeds of doubt that can grow into anxiety, resentment, and emotional distance. People begin to second-guess everything. They wonder what's being kept from them, who their partner really is, and whether the connection they believed in was ever real. This uncertainty can be exhausting, and it affects not only the relationship but the individual's sense of self-worth and emotional stability. Rebuilding trust is a difficult process. It requires accountability, transparency, and time. The person who broke the trust must be willing to understand the pain they caused and take concrete steps to change. The one who was hurt must also choose whether they are willing to forgive and rebuild, or whether the damage is too deep. It's a journey that demands patience and mutual effort. Words alone are not enough. Trust is rebuilt through consistent, trustworthy actions repeated over time. Every promise kept, every honest conversation, every moment of vulnerability slowly adds a brick back to the wall that was torn down. What makes trust so essential is that it touches every aspect of a relationship. It influences how people communicate, how they handle conflict, how they make decisions together. In its presence, relationships flourish. Without it, even the most passionate love can wither. Trust is what allows two people to grow together instead of apart. It creates a space where both can be fully seen and accepted. It doesn't require perfection. It requires integrity. It's not about never making mistakes, but about being honest when you do, and being willing to do the hard work to repair the damage. At its core, trust is about emotional safety. It's knowing that no matter what happens outside the relationship, inside it, you are not alone. It's about believing that someone is truly in your corner, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. And when that kind of trust exists, it transforms a relationship from something transactional into something deeply sacred and enduring. The question flips the emotional perspective because it shifts the conversation from accusation to introspection. Instead of directly confronting someone with a claim or suspicion, it invites them to step into your emotional experience and imagine what it would feel like to be on the receiving end of the same behavior. In doing so, it bypasses defensiveness and challenges the person to access their empathy. Asking, "If I had done to you what I suspect you've done to me, how would you feel?" is not just a clever way to approach conflict. It's a deeply psychological and emotionally intelligent move. It cuts through potential lies and justifications and aims straight at the core of human conscience. This kind of question asks for more than just a response. It demands reflection. When someone hears it, they're not just being asked to deny or confirm an action, they're being asked to feel. They are momentarily placed in your shoes, made to imagine the betrayal, the doubt, the pain. For someone who has acted dishonestly or hurtfully, this question can be disarming because it doesn't come with yelling blame or threats. Instead, it comes with a mirror, and that mirror can be difficult to look into. In many cases, people are more moved by understanding the pain they've caused than by being told they did something wrong. Guilt, empathy, and regret often stem from truly grasping how their actions impacted someone they care about. When a person is guilty, their reaction to this question is often telling. They may pause, they may avoid eye contact, they may get angry or try to change the subject. These responses are defense mechanisms kicking in, not necessarily confirmations of guilt, but signs that something deeper has been triggered. On the other hand, someone who is innocent and emotionally attuned will often answer sincerely, showing care, concern, and a desire to ease your fears. Either way, the emotional shift caused by this question reveals more than a yes or no ever could. The power of flipping the emotional perspective lies in how it alters the usual power dynamics of confrontation. Traditional confrontations often put one person in the position of judge and the other in the position of the accused. That setup creates resistance. Most people, when accused, immediately go into self-protection mode. They deny, minimize, or try to reverse the blame. But when you flip the emotional frame and ask how they would feel if the roles were reversed, you remove the spotlight and place it between you both. It becomes less about proof and more about understanding. That kind of question isn't seeking confession, it's seeking awareness. This method of emotional redirection also reinforces emotional intelligence in a relationship. It encourages both people to move beyond surface-level dialogue and into a space of emotional accountability. When someone is forced to imagine the emotional consequence of their actions, it often leads to more honest communication. It creates a space where the truth can emerge, not through force but through empathy. And when empathy leads the conversation, healing, whether that means reconciliation or closure, becomes possible. This question, at its core, respects both people in the conversation. It gives the suspected person a chance to respond not with defensiveness, but with reflection. It also empowers the one asking the question, allowing them to speak their truth without rage or manipulation. It shows emotional maturity and demands the same in return. It is a gentle but firm way of saying, I see something is wrong, and I want you to understand what that feels like for me. In relationships, especially those facing challenges of honesty and loyalty, communication often fails not because people can't talk, but because they don't know how to talk in ways that reach each other's hearts. Flipping the emotional perspective is a way to bridge that gap, to open a door that might otherwise remain shut by pride, fear, or guilt. It asks the other person to not just think but to feel. And sometimes that feeling is where the truth finally begins to show itself. Reactions reveal more than words because human behavior is deeply rooted in emotion, and our bodies often speak before our minds can censor them. When someone is confronted with a difficult or uncomfortable question, their immediate reaction before they even open their mouth can offer powerful insight into their thoughts, feelings, and intentions. These reactions are often involuntary: a flicker of the eyes, a hesitation, a sudden shift in posture, a forced smile, or a defensive tone. Unlike words, which can be crafted and rehearsed, reactions come from instinct and emotion, making them a more reliable indicator of truth or deception. When a person is being honest, their reactions usually align with their words. Their tone, facial expressions, and body language all support the message they are trying to convey. There's a natural flow to their communication. But when someone is being dishonest or trying to hide something, there's often a disconnect. They might say one thing while their body says another. For example, they might insist they're not upset while their arms are crossed tightly, their jaw is clenched, or their voice quivers. These subtle signals are difficult to fake or suppress, which is why they can be more telling than the spoken word. In emotionally charged situations, especially those involving trust and fidelity, these reactions become even more important. When you ask someone a question like, "If I had done to you what I suspect you've done to me, how would you feel?" Their immediate emotional response can speak volumes. A person who is guilty might not even realize how quickly they look away, fidget, or become irritated. They may laugh nervously, become overly defensive, or suddenly go silent. Each of these reactions, though not conclusive on their own, can signal inner conflict or discomfort that deserves attention. It's not just about catching someone in a lie. Reactions also reveal a person's emotional investment and their level of empathy. When someone is truly connected to you, their reactions to your pain or suspicions tend to be compassionate and concerned. They may feel hurt that you're doubting them, but their response will come from a place of care rather than deflection or rage. On the other hand, someone who reacts with indifference, hostility, or excessive justification may be more focused on protecting themselves than on understanding your perspective. This is why observing reactions is such a valuable skill in relationships. It allows you to look beyond the surface and see what someone may not be ready or able to say. It helps you detect patterns that words might try to cover up. And it gives you a better understanding of how someone truly feels, not just what they claim to feel. A person can say they love you, but if their actions and reactions constantly reflect distance, irritation, or avoidance, those words begin to lose their meaning. It's important to approach these moments with both clarity and compassion. Not every uncomfortable reaction means someone is guilty of betrayal. People react strongly to emotional pressure for many reasons: past trauma, insecurity, fear of conflict, or even confusion. That's why context matters. The key is to pay attention to consistency over time. Are their words and behaviors aligned? Do they respond to your concerns with openness, or do they always shut down or lash out? These patterns tell the real story of the relationship. Learning to read reactions doesn't mean turning into a detective or treating your partner like a suspect. It means learning to trust your own instincts and observations. It means being aware of the unspoken language that often communicates more clearly than any sentence ever could. In the end, while words can charm or deceive, reactions come straight from the soul, and the truth almost always finds a way to show itself, even when someone is trying to hide it. This isn't about playing games. When it comes to relationships and trust, especially in moments of doubt or emotional tension, the goal is not to manipulate, trap, or outsmart the other person. It's about seeking clarity and emotional honesty. Relationships aren't competitions where one person wins and the other loses. They are partnerships built on vulnerability, communication, and mutual respect. When someone suspects dishonesty or betrayal, asking meaningful questions or observing behavior isn't about catching someone like a detective in a movie. It's about trying to understand what's really happening beneath the surface, both in the relationship and in themselves. Playing games involves hidden agendas, passive-aggressive tactics, and power struggles. But asking someone to reflect on their own actions by flipping the perspective, by encouraging them to imagine being in your place, is not a game. It's a direct and emotionally intelligent approach to seeking the truth. It invites introspection and empathy, rather than confrontation and defensiveness. When someone uses this approach, they're not trying to score points or manipulate the situation. They're trying to create a moment of real human connection, even in the midst of pain or suspicion. The reason this distinction is so important is that many people have become accustomed to toxicity being disguised as communication. In some relationships, people engage in silent treatments, mind games, guilt trips, or calculated emotional responses in an attempt to control the other person. That kind of behavior damages trust and creates confusion. It leads to cycles of resentment, mistrust, and emotional distance. But seeking truth honestly and respectfully is the opposite of that. It's about being brave enough to ask difficult questions and being open enough to hear the answers, even when they hurt. When someone says this isn't about playing games, what they often mean is, I'm not here to manipulate you, shame you, or trap you. I just want to know the truth because I care about what we've built, and I need to understand what's real and what isn't. That comes from a place of emotional maturity. It comes from wanting to move forward, whether that means healing together or parting ways with dignity. It's a sign that someone values honesty more than control, and clarity more than comfort. In emotionally charged situations, it can be easy to fall into reactive behaviors. People sometimes use sarcasm, withhold affection, or try to make the other person jealous just to get a response. But none of that leads to genuine answers or resolution. It only creates more confusion and pain. Choosing to speak directly, to ask someone to consider the emotional weight of their actions, is a far more courageous path. It shows that you're not afraid of the truth, even if it means facing heartbreak or disappointment. This approach also gives the other person an opportunity to be honest in return. When people aren't being attacked, they're more likely to speak openly. When they feel that the conversation is coming from a place of sincerity, not strategy, they're more likely to drop their defenses. That's when real conversations can happen. When two people stop performing and start being real with each other. Ultimately, the goal is connection, not control. If someone has done wrong, they should be given a chance to own it and decide if they're willing to make it right. And if they haven't, they deserve a chance to express that without being accused or provoked. Either way, moving forward with honesty is better than lingering in uncertainty or playing games that only deepen the distance. This isn't about tricking anyone. It's about saying I'm here, I'm real, and I need the same from you. That's not a game, that's love, at its most honest and raw. If you need to ask, something is already wrong. That moment, when you feel compelled to question your partner's loyalty, intentions, or honesty, is often a clear signal that the emotional balance in the relationship has already been disturbed. It doesn't necessarily mean that your partner is guilty of betrayal, but it does indicate that your sense of safety, trust, or connection has been compromised. Relationships thrive when both people feel secure and seen. When suspicion creeps in, it's a sign that the foundation of trust has begun to crack, whether due to changes in behavior, emotional distance, lack of communication, or something deeper within you that senses a shift. That intuitive nudge, the uneasy feeling that something isn't right, is powerful. People often try to dismiss it, telling themselves they're overthinking, being insecure, or reading too much into things. But the truth is, that inner voice is rarely random. It's the result of subtle cues your mind has picked up over time. It might be the sudden secrecy around phones, a change in tone during conversations, the disappearance of emotional intimacy, or an unspoken tension that seems to hang in the air. These signals don't scream out loud, but they whisper to your instincts, and eventually you start asking questions not because you want to catch someone, but because you're trying to understand what changed. Asking a difficult question like, if I did to you what I think you've done to me, how would you feel? Isn't usually the first step in a conversation. It often comes after weeks or months of internal struggle, second guessing, and trying to give the benefit of the doubt. It's a sign that communication has broken down to the point where direct clarity is the only way forward. And the very fact that you're at this point reveals that there's a deeper issue at hand, whether it's dishonesty, emotional neglect, lack of transparency, or a fading sense of partnership. Even if the person you're questioning hasn't actually done anything wrong, the fact that you're suspicious points to a disconnect. Healthy relationships are built on open dialogue. When you feel like you can't speak up, or when you're forced to analyze every little thing your partner does to find reassurance, it creates emotional fatigue. Love should feel like peace, not confusion. When you're constantly overthinking or doubting, the relationship stops being a source of comfort and becomes a source of anxiety. Moreover, needing to ask certain questions often reveals unmet needs in the relationship. You might be craving emotional closeness, honesty, or consistency, but instead you're met with defensiveness, distance, or avoidance. That imbalance, even if it's not rooted in betrayal, is still painful. It's a sign that your heart is reaching for something it's not receiving. And while that doesn't mean your partner is bad or unloving, it does mean something needs to change. When communication, trust, and emotional intimacy are intact, you don't feel the need to interrogate or test your partner. You feel aligned. You feel safe. You know that if something were wrong, you could talk about it openly and work through it together. But when that dynamic is lost, asking tough questions becomes a survival tactic. Your mind's way of trying to find stability in an increasingly uncertain emotional environment. So if you're at the point where you feel you have to ask, take that seriously. Not just as an indictment of your partner's behavior, but as a reflection of the state of the relationship itself. Something isn't working the way it should, and avoiding that truth will only allow the distance to grow. The question isn't just about uncovering someone else's actions, it's about facing the reality of your own emotional needs, and whether they are truly being met. Truth is a starting point, not the end. In any relationship, the moment when the truth is finally spoken or revealed can feel monumental. Whether it comes after a long silence, a painful confrontation, or a subtle unraveling of doubts, the truth has a way of cutting through confusion and illusion. But many people mistake that moment for closure, as if the truth itself is enough to resolve everything. In reality, truth is only the beginning of what comes next: understanding, healing, rebuilding, or even letting go. It is the first step into clarity, not the final destination of emotional resolution. When trust is broken, for example, people often say they just want the truth. But once the truth is out, once the lie is confessed, the betrayal is confirmed, or the feelings are acknowledged, there is still an entire emotional landscape to navigate. The truth might answer the questions that kept someone awake at night, but it also raises new ones. Why did it happen? Can it happen again? What does this say about us? What do we do now? The truth doesn't solve those. It merely allows those questions to be asked honestly, without the fog of denial or deceit. In this way, truth is like turning on a light in a dark room. It reveals the shape of things as they are, not as we hoped they would be. Sometimes the truth is painful, and sometimes it's liberating. Sometimes it confirms our fears, and other times it gives us the peace we were unknowingly waiting for. But no matter what form it takes, the truth marks the moment when pretense ends and reality begins. From there, choices must be made, conversations must follow, emotions must be processed. Truth sets the stage, but it does not deliver the performance. For people on both sides of the truth, those who speak it and those who hear it, the emotional work begins after the words are said. If the truth involves an apology, it must be supported by real change. If it reveals betrayal, it must be followed by accountability, or the decision to walk away. If it exposes unmet needs, it must lead to new efforts at connection and understanding. In healthy relationships, truth leads to growth. In toxic ones, it often highlights the need for separation. But in either case, it marks a shift, an invitation to move forward from a place of honesty, not illusion. People sometimes avoid the truth because they fear what it will destroy. But the real danger lies in building relationships on half-truths, lies, or emotional suppression. What truth may break, dishonesty would have eventually rotted. Even when it hurts, the truth offers clarity, and clarity is the only foundation on which something real can be built. Facing the truth gives us the opportunity to decide who we are, what we want, and whether the relationship we're in reflects those values. Truth also requires courage, both to speak it and to receive it. It's not easy to admit when we've hurt someone, or to hear that we've been hurt. It challenges the stories we tell ourselves, and the images we project to others. But without truth, there is no authentic connection. Love without truth becomes performance. Trust without truth becomes naivety. Healing without truth becomes denial. Only when the truth is present, can people begin to make choices that honor their real emotions and boundaries. Ultimately, the power of truth lies not just in what it reveals, but in what it allows. It opens the door to deeper conversations, honest reflection, and intentional change. Whether the truth leads to reconciliation or closure, its real value is in what it begins, not what it ends. It is the spark, not the flame, the doorway, not the destination. It's the point at which you stop pretending and start deciding how you want to live, love, and move forward.